Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Evil Live. I'm your host for tonight, the Evil Tyrone. My co-host is repping in the real world tonight, but she's still here in spirit, definitely here in spirit. Lady Evil. Shout out to Lady Evil. But yes, we're going to get into it tonight. We got another very, very special guest in the building. Another person who's very, very passionate about the craft, and it definitely comes through in her work, as I've recently checked out, which we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that. I'm going to tell her how much I appreciated what I saw on this screen, ladies and gentlemen. But yes, we got our very, very special guest in the building tonight, Miss Anatasha Blakely. How you feeling tonight?
Hey, I'm feeling great, man. What a good little intro. I'm so excited to hear what you thought of, I'm assuming, Inch Thick, Knee Deep. So I'm excited to talk to you. And
Yes.
thanks for
Yes.
having me.
Listen. It was a joy to watch. It was a joy to watch. But thank you for coming on the show. Filmmaker, actor. I'm always excited to talk with folks in the community. Who do things for the genre. For the genre that I love, horror. And
Yeah.
especially when my folks, recommend people to me, which, friend of the show and friend in real life, Sheree Bohannon, shout out, she's in the chat tonight. Shout out Sheree, Nightmare on
Yeah.
Fear
Hey,
Street, Blurry
Sheree. Oh,
Massacre.
I love her so much. Hello. Hi.
Yes. She was like, hey, you gotta check her out, check her out. I'm like, all right, let me click the link and just like I yeah, we'll definitely get into that. We'll definitely get into that. We got Wookie in the building. Thank you for stopping by, Wookie. Always showing love. In love with horror, always showing love. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for stopping by. Paul Draws, thank you for stopping by. Hello, don't worry about my face. Later, I'm going to change something cool than using the pig face.
There's
You know
nothing
what?
wrong with pig face. You
Yeah,
don't need to change. You know what I mean? Like, belong to
yes.
yourself. Be who you are.
Listen, the pig face is iconic, so I'm like, stay true to you, stay true to who you are. The pig face is iconic, but yes, we're definitely gonna get into it, inch thick, knee deep, wow, wow. I cut it on, I went in blind. I didn't really, uh do too much like research or read into it. I just cut it on, and I'm like, first thing that I noticed was like I'm automatically like just engrossed with the dialogue. Like I feel like you guys really set a tone, like right off the bat, really set a tone. And I'm like, okay, the acting here is really on point, really on point. And I'm like, okay, this is it. Like I just instantly got excited about this interview. And if you guys have not checked it out yet, darklings darklingfilms .com, and the first thing that you're going to see is all these accolades at the top of the screen, and they are all
Yeah,
well
she likes to
deserved.
show off. You know what I mean? We gotta show off a little bit. I'm so glad you went in blind. I actually found that recently I've been very excited about watching films without having any context for them other than the fact that they've been suggested to me. So I'll have friends tell me to watch something, or a few years ago, Jacob and I went and saw Thoroughbreds in the theater, and I hadn't even seen a poster. I knew nothing, absolutely nothing. He was just like, I think you'll like this. And going in blind is such a different experience than having watched a trailer. It feels like you're taking everything as it comes without being ahead of the film, and it's kind of an experience that I love. So I love that you watch my film that way.
Listen, it was magic. It was magic. I love that. I love when you can sit down and watch a film and have fun with it, and be surprised, because there were, I don't want to spoil anything for, folks who haven't seen it, because I did. The link is in the description, folks. So, once this is over, if you have not already seen it, definitely check it out. It's definitely worth your while. It's a little under 18 minutes, definitely worth your while all the way through. The characters, uh, just the characters, the acting were on point. The I feel like as I'm watching it, as I'm watching it and the story unfolds, there were certain parts where I was just like, I was taken back. I'm like, oh, I'm because I'm thinking, I'm knowing what's going on. I'm like, okay, these two conversation, regular conversation, and then it gets a little saucy, and then like, oh wow, this is I was not expecting this, and that was just off the dialogue alone, and then we get more context as the story rolls on, and I'm just like, oh wow, like this whoever wrote this is on point, definitely on point. And I saw the credits and I'm like, oh wow, of course it was uh Anatasha herself. So how did you come up with the idea of this film? Because I'm absolutely in love with it, and whenever I find films like these, especially like shorter films, I love sharing them with folks and getting their reactions. So this is one that I will definitely be excited about, for 2024. And during my recommendations, I would definitely be shooting this one out there because I feel like more and more people need to see it. So how did you come about this?
Well, hell yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks for wanting to share it. It's so interesting because like even as you were talking about being taken aback, I was like thinking about when I wrote it. And um it's the only thing that I've ever written that I never, this is gonna sound weird, but I never edited. And so how it came out was that I wrote it very slowly and I wasn't 100% sure what was happening. But as I went, I was like, I felt like I was improvising with myself, because I'm an improviser and it's like a big part of my world. But it was like these two people were talking and I was making discoveries about what was going on, like as I went. And the first draft took a kind of a long time because most of the time when I write something, I like word vomit and then I'm editing and changing and all this stuff. And this was like the only thing I've ever written where it was like it came out as at the rate that it came out. And I was discovering it as I went. And I feel like because I surprised myself, the audience is very often surprised and then as a director, being able to like frame things in such a way that you could enter into what I knew and sort of zoom out as I discovered things was a big part of the process. But the initial seed of the idea came. I was in I was in line at Disneyland for the Cars ride, and I remember seeing this little kid, and there was like this really beautiful beetle, and this little kid was like poking at it and like kind of you could see his little kid like he kind of wants to tear the legs off, like he doesn't really understand that it's a living thing because he's so small, and it was coming from like a very childish place. And I had that image stuck in my head, and I just remember I kept thinking like, who's the adult version of this that's like having a tantrum and like doesn't understand that the bug is a being. And I had the image of Quinn killing the ladybug and just and sort of having an adult tantrum, and like the I wasn't sure exactly what was going on with her, but that's what it built out from, is that I was like thinking about that image over and over again, and why she was upset. And then that's the script kind of came out from that.
Oh, man, it's funny, like you described, like, you never, when you were writing it, you didn't really know where it was going initially, as time went on, you just let it take you, where the story took you. And I'm like, that's kind of how I felt as the viewer, as I'm watching it. I'm like, okay, I feel like I know what's going on. And then it literally, after it ended, I literally had to rewind it and was like, what did not catch, because
Mm-hmm.
and I love when I can, sit down and enjoy something and be able to be like, well, damn, like my brain wasn't even thinking about that, and maybe there's some
Yeah.
some subtleties and things like that. It was just, I don't know, it was just amazing. And the acting, oh my God, you're kudos to you, because like, you definitely killed it. Yeah, you definitely killed it on so many levels. Especially the I guess the narrative, the way that the way that your character grew, you know, throughout the story. It was just like, wow, I did not think that it was going to end that way, and I did not. It was just see the damn film, folks. See the damn film.
Yeah, thanks,
Darling
guys. We won't
films.
spoil too much for you, but
Yeah.
I will say that I feel like Quinn did give me like a in preparing to do that. I feel like I almost gave myself an ulcer in the sense that I think as an actor, the closer something feels to you, the easier it feels to hold. So, you know, if I'm playing something that feels very much like myself, and there's an ease in that. And she has a lot going on that I'm like, that is not me. Like that kind of emotion probably lives in me somewhere, obviously, as I think people contain multitudes. But it felt like she was hard to hold. And I really like imagined her like a coiled spring, you know, and
Yeah.
it does pop, or like a boiling kettle, you know, it does it does steam and overflow. But that feeling and holding it in prep for the few months beforehand and trying to capture the states of being that she goes through that I just don't experience in my everyday life for obvious reasons was something that was a lot of hard work. And also after we shot, I had an unexplained stomach ache for like 2 months afterwards. And my husband and I were like, we weren't married at the time, and he was like, what's going on? I was like, I don't know. But I was like, I feel like I made myself ill or something, because I didn't have the tools that I do now to like kind of come out of such a hard place to be. I think I have more tools now as an actor that I'd be like, I would have been taking ice baths and all sorts of stuff. But she was like very satisfying work, but not easy, like not fun, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. It just like I can't wait until till these folks see it, and you know, just I gotta get their feedback. You know,
Yeah.
thanks for stopping by Double Feature Podcast. You know, Mika and Kira. You know, showing love. Hey, Corey in the building. You know, yes, happy Alien Day. Shout out to Alien Day. The View with Drew. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for stopping by. You know, now with some of that, do you do improv? Because I just feel like I don't know, it's just something about your performance. You know, I'm like, okay, she's dipping into multiple bags here, you know, so she's got that sort of, you're giving improv you know, as improv skill, you know.
Yeah, I would say that improv's everything to me. My husband and I perform together as a duo, Buddy Puzzle, and I also have an ensemble, Storm Chaser. We have a podcast, and I think improv is a huge reason why I felt permission to write for myself. And I feel like when you're on stage improvising, you're primarily an actor because you are playing a character in front of an audience. But when I've done a lot of, you know, scripted theater work, and it's nice to just be the actor. But when you're improvising, you are the writer, you're the director, you're the editor. Sometimes you're the poet and the singer and like
Yes.
the other thousand things that come up. It gave me permission to write, and I also felt gave me permission to wear multiple hats on a film set, which is, it's still difficult, and there's times when I'm like, what do I, you know, we just shot a short called Dashed Hope that we're in post production for, and I really felt it again, where I was like, why did I write and act, and why am I wearing multiple hats? Because sometimes it's nice to just focus on one thing. But improv always just made me feel like I'm like, yeah, I'm all those things though. Like that's all I'm doing on stage is directing myself and then being an actor and like letting go of that and then writing. So I think I love it too much.
Yes, yes. You talk about letting go. Like, so I'm thinking of improv. Like, it's definitely, something that you have to, practice at, and a tool and an exercise that you have to constantly, exercise. Like, how do you, as an improv artist, like, how do you get out of your head from being like, oh, I want to say it this way, or I want to say it that way, or maybe this character, like, how do you get out of the mode of overthinking, or is overthinking an issue with you on stage?
I don't think so as much anymore. When I started, I definitely like you have blinders on when you first start improvising and you're like just so wrapped up in what you think it's going to be. There's so much fear. At this point, I feel very much like the practice of improv is about being committed to the present moment as much as possible and also being non-attached and like letting go of what you think's supposed to happen and letting go of the what just happened in service of the next thing. And so as far as letting go, I'm like, yeah, letting go is half of what you're practicing and doing improv is like coming in and maybe you have this dream or this imagination and you see your partner and you're like, whoa, I feel like they're my dad and I they just found out that I failed math. And then they're like, sweetheart, I want a divorce. And suddenly you're like, oh, they're not my dad. I have to let go of the fact that I was even feeling that, but also commit to and hang on to anything that makes sense. Like maybe the reason why we're getting a divorce is because they've become like my dad. They're such a nurturer. There's no romance in our relationship, and so I'll like still commit to the things that make sense and let go of the things that don't make sense. Which I think that like is very informative as an actor on set, because there's things where I'm like doing a lot of prep for Inch Thick where I think a moment's going to go a certain way, and then when we like got into the location, that like 3-minute shot at the table that's the like sort of the climax of the film, which I won't spoil, was something that initially happened. There was more of it that happened like in the actual kitchen, but we liked the table and we liked the reflection so much that then it's like, can I let go of what I thought it was and go, now it's this, as a director, and also as an actor, can I let go of what I think the emotional reaction is and just be in it and find out what wave I'm riding while I'm riding it, which is I think how that moment ended up being containing so many different things was because it was unexpected and I didn't know what was going to come out of me. Does all that make sense?
Oh, yes.
That was my TED talk on improv. Here's my PowerPoint.
Listen, we love the passion, we love people who are very about the craft and just into it. That's why we do it. That is exactly why we do it. Now, Darkling Films, how did that come about?
That's my husband and me and my brother, and we just want to make movies together. I feel like um, I feel like I spent a long time as an actor knocking on doors, and again, I felt like improv gave me permission to be like, maybe I want to make my own stuff, and I found a lot of joy unexpectedly in producing, and also producing for other people, and feeling like I don't have to wait to get like a permission slip from someone to make something. And so Darkling Films is really is really that, and I'm kind of hoping to like keep expanding it and keep producing and making shit with people that I love. That's the other thing. Making shit with people that you love is the best. And sometimes you get thrust into a room with people you love and you meet them through these other gates that have opened. But I kind of like being a gatherer. Like I like being like, oh, I know my friend Sam, who's like our DP on everything, is like a fucking like dope ass, like wonderful, hilarious person to have in the room. And he's like so talented and has amazing taste and is like the easiest person to be around. And I'm like, I want to introduce him to my friend like Emily, who's like fucking funny. And I want to put her in the short and then like kind of gather everybody and see what happens. So
Yes, yes. I know the feeling, because I feel like that's what I try and do with this show, because so many different people are so talented with, and so like some people are talented in, filmmaking, some people are talented in other areas. And it's just like, when you can bring folks together, like, oh yeah, you should meet this person, you should meet this person, and they end up collaborating. It's the best damn feeling ever.
yeah.
It's the best
Do you
damn.
feel like this show has given you the space to do that?
Most definitely. I think that it's it's opened it up for that aspect of me creatively, like because
Mm,
I feel like I've always been that kind of person in my life, but I didn't realize it until I got a little older and I started being like, oh well, it was because I put these two people together, or I was the common denominator.
mm,
But being on this show, it was like, okay, well, I can I'm interviewing people, meeting all these different interesting folks, and then I see, sometimes people are cool as hell, but I feel like sometimes they just sit in their own little corner and they're just chilling, and they're like, oh, I'm cool, I'm fine, I'm not, I'm it's whatever, and I'm like, no, come on. That's why I started doing like discussion panels, and having people join in and meet each other. And, a lot of people have met each other in real life and, collaborating on different things. And it's like, it's a beautiful thing. And I think community, it's brought community, and that's why, below us, the horror community lives here, because that's what
mm.
it's all about. Every time I interview someone, I'm like, now you're on my page. So when someone does check me out, like, it's not just about me, but it's about the fact that they can literally go down the line and find all these different folks in the horror community, especially, folks of color, and folks from other communities, who may not necessarily get the shine that, I feel like they deserve, or, get the spotlight turned on them. But, we're here to cut the spotlight on them and, just share the love, share the love.
Yeah, it takes such a special person to be a gatherer and a producer. And, there's days when you're like, man, it's tiring. It's so much work. It feels like pushing a boulder up a hill. But the community that it builds is such a like cool, satisfying, like it's a really life-giving thing. And I also like um love what you said about just like slowly adding people to, when you're building a community and just like one at a time being like, hey, come be a part of this is um really cool and such a altruistic service you provide.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Listen, that's what it's all about. And just being around like-minded, individuals, like Sheree. Sheree does that as well. She
Mhm.
definitely puts a lot of people into connection, with a lot of other people, so
Oh yeah,
we
she's been too good to me, truly.
listen, sure. Listen, she's one of them. She's one of them ones. She's
Yeah.
definitely one of them ones. We got Germs in the building. Hey, Germs. Damn, I'm all on Twitter and IG watching. Y'all didn't say the fan was meeting on YouTube. Yeah, man. I'm trying to. I just started streaming the IG today. Again. So we're getting it done. Michael Anthony in the building. Hey, what's up, man? Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, I saw the notification. Yes, man. Thanks for stopping by. Sheree, I need to stop doing rewatches on Sundays if everyone is here without me. Yes, yes. Tyrone is like Professor X. He's in everyone's origin story. Well, thank
Whoa,
you.
that's like such a fucking good comment. I'm
Yes,
watching X-Men
yes.
97 and literally like every time my poor cats, every time the opening intro comes on and the song drops, I'm literally like screaming. Like the child in me is, I'm like, yeah, like, and my cats are getting scared, and my husband's like, are you ever gonna stop screaming? I was like, no, I'm not. Yeah, it's too good. So hey man, Professor X, it's fucking dope.
Listen. Thank you for that. Thank you for that compliment, Sheree. Thank you for that compliment. You know, X-Men '97. I've heard so many good things about it. I'm definitely going to dive into it this weekend. I waited for some episodes to, stack up. I've seen, some viral things, people getting emotional. So I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm in for a roller coaster. I feel like I'm.
Yeah, it's like one of my favorite things when I was a kid. So them revisiting it has been such a joy for me.
Yes, listen, Fox, was it Fox Kids, X-Men and Spider-Man and was it the Batman the animated series? Like
Oh,
we were
yeah.
spoiled.
We were
We
spoiled.
were spoiled,
Yeah. It's like
definite.
such adult content too. Like I went back and rewatched some of the OG X-Men series, and I was like, damn man. And it's just like the comics where you're just like, reason to love it is that it just gets into shit. It feels like it's really about something and it's saying something really important. So cool.
Listen, isn't it? Aren't they like such soap operas? Because I feel because
Yes.
growing up, I would always go over my great aunt's house, and she would be like, "All right, boy, it's time for my story. It's time to cut the stories on." And she's
Yeah.
cutting on Days of Our Lives, and I'm sitting up there watching Stefano and all these other
Yeah.
people, and but I'm like, oh,
Jean and Wolverine, and there's a love triangle, and it's like
yes,
people are dying. I
yes,
mean, I think X-Men is like low key a big influence on my storytelling, because as you probably can tell from my film, I'm like, I love high drama. I'm like, what is the most dramatic version of this? What's the highest stakes? What's the worst thing that could happen? And I'm like,
yes.
I blame X-Men.
Listen, and also just the mood, and like I said, like even in the beginning, when it starts, just the mood that it sets, not a lot of noise in the background, just the conversation. It almost felt like ASMR, a little bit in the beginning, so it definitely it had me in capture,
Yeah.
in the scene,
Oh, that's awesome. I like that it feels a little like ASMR. You're right, because it's like all in whispers, and my voice is like, there's a little vocal fry, and I buy
Mm-hmm.
that.
Oh yes, oh yes. Now the horror genre, what is that something that you've always loved? Like what's your horror origin story? Like how did you get into the genre?
Yeah, I feel like it's something I've always just been so attracted to. And when I was a kid, there was more of a love-hate relationship where I was like, I can't look away. Like even walking through the Blockbuster, I remember seeing like the cover for like Nightmare on Elm Street and being like, it's so scary, but I don't want to look away. And my eldest brother Aaron is 11 years older than me, and he's was a producer on the film, and is a huge horror fan. He's a big collectibles fan, like guy, and he just had movies I shouldn't have been watching on his shelf when I was a kid. And when people were out of the house, I'd be like, let's go over here and let's try Alien. So that's kind of how I started watching horror movies, was because of him and kind of popping in on him and his friends. And I also felt like, looking back, that horror in the video game realm was a really big influence on me. Like the first Resident Evil game on PlayStation, I watched my brothers play and thought it was like the scariest, most insane thing I'd ever seen. And my mom like bought me like tons of toys and stuff. And so I've just always, between video games and film, just, and again, and loving high drama, I was like, what's the worst thing that could happen? So I've always felt really drawn to it.
Oh yeah, and I love that you mentioned Resident Evil because it's one of those ones that, especially the games, they were very dramatic, especially with the door opening,
Oh my God. Yes. Every time you go into a new room, it's like, and you're like, Jesus Christ. And the fact that it cuts away, I just remember being like, it's such good suspense to have this like door open and it's black. It's like in an empty space. So like you don't know what you're walking into. And you're almost like, I don't want the sequence to be over because I'm afraid of what's going to be on the other side of the door. I'm like, how did they create that feeling with like the simplest? And in fact, as we're talking about it, I was like, I need to put that in a film. It's so there's something about it that's like ethereal. It doesn't feel like you're actually in the space, but it gives the feeling of like, what the fuck's in this room? You know?
Listen, and I think that's the feeling that we all had, especially back then when the original ones dropped. Of course, like everything's all amped up now because we've got better graphics and things like that. Like I think Resident Evil 7 scared the shit out of me, like.
Did you ever try it in VR?
I aspire to one day, but I have not.
No.
You
My
have?
brother was like, hey, try it. And I was like, I sat in a safe room for like what felt like 20 minutes. And I kept like coming, like being like, I can move out. And then I was like, I'm actually paralyzed. I was like, I don't think I can play this game like this. It's literally too much. So we beat it, not VR, because I couldn't. I don't know who is that brave. I find it incredibly disconcerting.
Listen, that's how you get your money out of these games, because if you're not scared, you're going to beat it like 6-7 hours or whatever. But if you're scared, it's going to take me 3 months. It took me 3 months to beat that damn game because I was that freaked out.
God,
that and Alien Isolation.
Oh God, Alien Isolation. That's the shit of nightmares. It's so stress inducing. It's the feeling of dread that I'm like, nothing else gives me that except these video games. It's a feeling of dread that I honestly, I just don't. Did you ever play Until Dawn?
Oh, loved it.
Fuck, I know. I think that they're doing like a remaster of that or something.
Love Until Dawn.
Yeah, I was like, I can't wait to replay that game. I feel like it hits everything I love about the horror genre, and then somehow it still makes sense, and the characters start out like such fucking teen horror movie, like I Hate You, but by the end, kind of the opposite of a lot of teen horror movies. I fell in love with them. I like desperately didn't want them to die. What a great fucking game.
Oh yeah, I think that's the beauty of games these days. They can play with your mind, and you're in the character's POV, so it's a whole nother level. Like I remember playing BioShock, and there are certain parts of BioShock where I'm just like, holy fucking shit. Or in Dead Space, where it's just like the environment and just even the storytelling. Like back then it was just like basic level, and then you had your lore. But nowadays this damn storytelling is Oscar worthy.
There's some amazing stories in video games. Like Detroit Become Human is like devastating in a way that I just was not expecting. Did you ever play? Okay, so I'm thinking back to my childhood horror roots. Did you ever play I think it's called Clock Tower.
You know what? I've heard people talk about it, but I've never played Clock Tower.
I think there was one. Maybe it was the Super Nintendo. It was because it was like I remember the pixels. I remember the PlayStation 1 the most because me and my neighbor Judd, we were like obsessed with it around the same time as Resident Evil. But the Super Nintendo version, there's just like a tiny little pixel guy with big scissors, and it's a survival horror. So he's chasing you, and you can't kill him. You just have to run. And I replayed this game when I was in college on an emulator, and I still, even though it's tiny little pixel guys, I still had to mute it. I was like, it's too stressful. I had to mute the sound because I was like, I gotta run, and and it's killing. The sound is like getting me killed. So I like had to mute the sound in order to beat the game.
I've learned that so many times in video games. Sometimes when it's just too stressful, especially in horror, I have to mute the sound. Like, and I know it's like a cheat code, but I'm like, I have to cut that sound off because sometimes it's just so scary, especially in like you said, in games where they don't really give you like the tools to fight back, like something like similar to Alien Isolation in the beginning, where you're just creeping around, and it's just like, what? I I Alien Isolation had me drinking first thing in the morning. Like, I think I literally, literally, and I'm not even a big
You're
drinker.
like, I
Like I
need a
don't.
shot if I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, I didn't even like. I literally was like, all right, let me grab my bottle that I got in the fridge, pour me a drink. It's 9:30 in the morning. I'm like, I'm gonna beat this fucking game just to calm my nerves because it was that serious. Yeah.
That's freaking amazing. That's amazing. I my cheat code is throwing the controller at my husband. I'm like, please, I can't, please. That's so funny. Well, it's fun. When I was younger, I think I used the sound trick or just would turn scary movies down. I was like, I'm just gonna turn it down so it's not too scary. Now I would never do that to the filmmaker. I would never hurt them that way. I will bear it.
Yeah, yeah. I think the last time I was like on edge when it came to like sound was a Skinamarink. I had my headphones
Oh,
on
I
when I was
haven't
watching
seen
it.
it yet. That's one that I really
Yeah, yeah.
I'll
I
bear it.
recommend watching it in the dark with your headphones on,
Okay.
no distractions, no lights on. It's definitely like people it's one of those ones where people are very polarized about it, but I was one of the ones who absolutely loved it. The atmosphere was definitely top notch.
I
Top
love a polarizing film, honestly. I almost feel like as an artist, you just don't want to you don't want to produce apathy or middle of the, just something that's mid. I almost love I got some comments on Inch Thick on like Screamfest YouTube of like mostly positive, but like when people don't like it, they're like, fuck you for making this, and also fuck you for making this. Are you a serial killer? And I kind of love it. Like when if someone is so affected by it that they're like, this made my life worse. I'm like, well, at least I went hard at something, like I kind of like it.
Yeah, I think that's what art's about. You don't want someone to watch your thing and was like, yeah, it was all right. It was all right. You want them to either love it, come out of there being like, oh my God, I love this part, have their favorite scenes or, tell you how they felt about it emotionally. Or if they didn't like it, it's even interesting hearing, their passion for why they didn't love it, because it's at least you had an effect, you had
Yeah.
an effect in the world, and that's what art's supposed to do, have an effect in the world.
Mm.
You know, we got a double feature. They said Kara and I couldn't even make it out the mansion. Yeah, I think they were talking about the VR. Everybody's talking about VR and Resident Evil 7. I'm not meddling for VR. I would head to the ER.
Yeah, it's no joke. It'll give you a freaking heart attack. It really will. I also like saw that they made like a Resident Evil 7 like VR candle. That they were like, you want the experience? You burn this candle, you get the smell. And I was like, no, thank you. Seriously, my voice just cracked. I was like, no, why would I do
The
that to myself? That's a
this
nightmare.
listen, the sites that we saw were smells enough. We the sites were smelly enough.
Smelly enough.
Sheree says, wait, do people not drink at 9:30 in the morning out there? You know what? Some do. It's 12 noon somewhere, as they
Just
say.
depends on what I got going on that day.
Yeah, exactly. Especially, depending on what's going on that day and depending on what's going on at work, depending, it's all in fun and games. It's all in fun and games, you know. Now we were talking about, the horror genre. Like, what do you remember, like the first horror movie or the first horror movie that you can remember that really affected you when you saw it?
I'm not, I am uncertain of what came first because there are so many. I think one of the first like visuals, I don't know if you count it as a horror movie or an action movie. One of the first visuals I remember seeing is somebody being skinned in Predator. Like I remember my folks and my brother watching that and me seeing that image and being like, ah, like, what am I looking at? Which I thought was scary. But I think like a really early influence for me was Scream.
Mm, yes.
And it was like that was the horror film that I remember going to school and like talking about with my friends. And like me and Judd snuck into his brother's room and put in a VHS and watched it. And we're actually, I don't even know if we finished the whole thing together. We just watched the first bit with Drew Barrymore and then like couldn't stop talking about it. And we're like, what did we just, this is the coolest thing we've ever seen in our entire lives. So that one was a big one for me. And I also remember really loving Alien and Aliens. That was another one that like my parents just, that was something my parents like watch a movie every night. That's still what they do. That's like half their marriage is being like, let's watch a movie tonight. Shocker that I want to make movies. It's almost like I want to impress them. But I remember watching Alien and Aliens with them. And one that really scared me that I have not revisited, and I wonder if I would still, it's the only one from my childhood that I'm like, would I still take to that? Was I remember watching Event Horizon and being like, what in the fuck? Like having a lot of nightmares.
Yeah.
And I would love to revisit it in my adulthood. I'm like, I don't know how I would feel about it now.
Listen, sometimes that shit hits just as much as it hit, and as a kid. I revisit Night of the Demons, because it hit me as a kid, and it still hits me as an adult. So, it's and like you mentioned earlier, Scream. Like I remember catching Scream for the first time at the drive-in theater, and it was amazing. And it's still like, especially that opening scene, it just remembers how much, like I remember how much it affected me. That Drew Barrymore scene, and just being like, damn, this shit is so raw. Like they're showing this on, this isn't like something that you have to pay for on like, like some underground, syndication or whatever. This is on television, let it, my little mind could not conceptualize that shit would get a lot more graphic, in the future. But yeah, it was definitely one of those ones. And we got some Event Horizon love. Double Feature says Event Horizon is so slept on.
Okay,
Great.
so like I need to rewatch this film is what I'm hearing.
Yes. It's a top tier. Kira says top tier, a mind fuck, trippy, and a fun ride.
Yeah.
Yes.
It makes sense too, because like I've been my brother and I are like pretty into Lovecraft, and I made another film that's is still in the festival circuit, called Death Parts Us, that is based on Call of Cthulhu. It's like just based loosely on a character from Call of Cthulhu, and we shot it on 16 millimeter. And I was like, I want to do something practical, but that has the trippiness of cosmic horror and what it might do to your brain if you could take in the information of the universe. And I was like really inspired by like David Lynch and stuff. But I know that Event Horizon, like now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, it feels very Lovecraftian and very like something that I'm like, I think I would like that in my adulthood. So
listen, Event Horizon is definitely up there. And I did see the trailer, for the film that you're just talking about. Like I'm excited. I'm excited to check that one out as well, especially after seeing this one,
It's the exact, I don't know how else to say it, but I was like, it's the exact opposite of Inch Thick in every way. Inch Thick was like, I feel like I wrote a play, and here it is. And Death Parts Us is a silent film that I was like, I think that I have reactions to myself. I'm like, I made this, and then I'm like, let's swing the pendulum all the way over here, and then I do it again and again.
Yes. Now you mentioned cosmic horror, and Lovecraft, like that shit just, I don't know, something about cosmic horror just scares the shit out of me, because it's like there's nothing to be reasoned with, with cosmic horror, nothing at all,
There's nothing to fight. It's just, I think it captures the existential dread that everyone touches, probably, at least for me, like very often, where you're like, what is this? The big question mark, where you're like, oh, is really captured in cosmic horror in a way that's attractive to me.
Yes. It's top tier. Have you checked out Lovecraft Country?
I have not. Is it good?
Oh, it is fucking amazing. Top tier. They only gave it one season, but it's it's all right. It's streaming, but it'll be in the streamiverse,
You know
for
what?
forever.
Sometimes I feel like you saying that makes me be like more likely to watch it, because sometimes I get intimidated by things that have a lot of content. Like I almost, and I haven't always been this way, but it's just a lot easier for me personally to sit down and watch a film than it is for me to commit to a long TV show. But one season, I'm like, okay, I could
But
check that out.
you know what it is? It's one season. I feel like there are no filler episodes in this,
Mm.
and also it's well acted. And on top of that, every episode is like a different subgenre of horror, and of like
Ah,
cosmic horror. So it's like you get your like straight up horror, you get your action adventure, like Indiana Jones types. Like it just goes all over the place, and it's all under the umbrella of that Lovecraftian film and lore.
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'll check that out. I was
Yeah.
actually thinking, because we were talking about like madness and like nothing to be reasoned with, and then I like looked at my own image and was like, oh yeah, I got these new fucking Alice, American McGee's Alice pictures. Thanks, my friend Dan. These like prints, because that was like also another video game that like, and the sequel that when I was a kid, I was like, watched my brother play it on the PC, and I tried to play it, and I was like a little too young, but could, and then played the sequel, and I feel like Alice in Wonderland is a low key inspiration for me, and the fact that somebody took it and put it in like the horror genre was so, and still is to me. I'm like, that's the fucking coolest. I think I would make such a sick ass live action film, and they should let me make it. Will
You
somebody let me fucking make that? I would die.
you and me both think that fucking film needs to be made. So I'm totally there with you. I'm excited. They I think they recently announced, I think it
Oh,
was the top of the year, they're making a third one,
oh,
a
really?
third
God,
game. Yeah.
that'd be a freaking joy. I love that.
Yeah, but they definitely need to, turn that into, film,
Yeah,
because it's up there. It's up there, you
yeah,
know.
it's really cool. It's
Yeah.
it's almost like I feel like it'd be really easy to mess that up, but I feel like if you really like leaned in tonally to the way that the video game makes you feel, I'm like, no, yeah, there's a good film in there.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and just Alice in Wonderland is trippy in itself. Like it's a horror, it's a horror story in itself. Just a trippy. I would rather be in so many horror scenarios than an Alice in Wonderland scenario, because at least I know I'm in the real world when I'm running from Michael Myers.
Yeah,
I'm and
you
up in,
can't when you can't trust your own like senses. It's like hallucinating. I'm like, yeah, that to me that's the scariest for sure. At least a slasher, I feel like I know what I'm fighting.
yes, yes, most definitely, most definitely. And now we got some comments. Michael said you should check out The Void if you like cosmic horror.
Thank you,
Yes,
Michael.
heard a lot of things
My
about
brother loves that film.
The Void. Yes, yes. And Kira, she mentions, did you see From? From is definitely, it's one of those shows, it's in the cosmic, realm, where you don't know what the hell's going on, but your mind is grinding away. I think they're coming, yeah,
Mhm.
they're premiering the third season. Should be soon, should be relatively soon.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for all these suggestions, my friends. You know, that's the thing, is like I love being like, and I don't even have to watch a trailer. People are telling me it's good, then I can kind of just go in and experience it fresh, which is
Listen,
cool.
listen, that is exactly what the horror community is about. Recommendations. I have so many recommendations. A very finite time to watch all this shit. But when I do, when stuff hits, oh my god, it
Mhm.
hits. It definitely hits. Now, do you have a favorite subgenre? Because I know you like to you talked about like your content and your films that you make, like you're very versatile, but does one subgenre, stick out to you?
Oh man. I love, here, I'm going to say the things that I love and then maybe we'll find it together. Sheree knows this. I love a badass female lead. I love um I love films that have like really like connected stories about like friendships and like strong ensembles. Like I love The Descent.
Oh.
I wonder if uh yeah, what subgenre would you put that in? Cave movies.
Listen, as above, so below. Cave
Mhm.
movies is
I love I think I like when horror touches, I think this is really apparent in my film. I like when horror touches like really connected drama. Um and I'm like, so what is that? Horror drama? I don't know if that's not like a super exciting subgenre.
It is though. It is because I feel like, especially like something like Hereditary, which they just released on
Mhm.
IMAX, re-released. I'm like, people are digging these dramatic themes in their horror films now, especially on a level where people are just giving us these amazing dialogue performances. Like,
Mhm.
I've seen so many people quote, their favorite lines from Hereditary and Pearl and all these other
Mhm.
movies. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think that's my jam, especially like in terms of things that I'd like to make. I have a feature script I don't want to say sitting on because that makes me feel lazy, but I have something that I'd like to make and and it feels very much of that world. It is a zombie film, but like I had a friend read it recently and she was like, it feels like a really connected, like intimate drama that happens to be in a world where there's zombies, but definitely not the other way around. And I was like, yeah, that feels correct. Like I want something that feels really relationship heavy, but has like the elements that I love of horror uh, and like those fantasy elements. So yeah,
Yes, I love it.
that's
I
my
love it.
subgenre.
So have you checked out the work of what's that, Mike Flanagan? Mike Flanagan's work? Because
What's he
he's
done?
he's he's heavy into horror. He's done a lot of done a lot of things for Netflix. Cheryl
Yes. Um,
House
I had a
House of
friend mention this to me. I haven't watched that Netflix series, but I've been told pretty much that
yes.
this is the genre, and that I'm like, that's one
He's
that I need to check
he's
out.
got so he's got a few that, if you are into the drama and you are into the characters and even the cosmic, he is your guy for that. He
Okay.
is definitely your guy for that. Definitely recommend that. Sheree says, I was about to say, badass leading ladies. Yes, leading
Yes,
ladies.
it's true.
It's
Give
that's
me give me Kate Beckinsale in leather.
facts. Ready or not, give me Ready or Not. Give me High Tension.
Give me Natalie Portman doing ballet. Give me.
Listen.
Oh, whatever fucking Darren Aronofsky's doing. Requiem for a Dream, Mother, Black Swan, whatever horror that is, where you're like, I'm so fucking overwhelmed and I wish I was dead, but I'm going to finish this movie instead. That's also what I want to make.
Listen. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. That it shows some depth. You want to dig. You want to dig deep. You want to dig deep. Now, do you have a movie that you could name, a horror film that you could name, that you wish you would have been on the set for? You know.
Oof. I know we already talked about The Descent, but that is definitely my answer. There's something about like reusing, I know they reused sets and different things, and like that there was like a degree of scrappiness in the making of it. And I'm also so impressed with the acting ensemble. I think that they're all like excellent and it feels so connected, um and also the having a practical element of gore and monsters and all of that, I'm like, that sounds so fun to me. So fun to me.
Listen, it's I feel like it adds to it, you know, when you have the gore and the monsters and things like that, and then what it could you could bring it to like what it symbolizes, you know. So
Oh, speaking of, you know what else would have been cool is like The Thing. I'm like, that would have been like I'm like, yeah, I want to see the fucking monster magic. I'm like, that's
just
so cool.
just knowing like the passion that went behind that, and just to sit behind the scenes and to know that they had to be like folks had to be stressing to get this shit right, and just to like it would have had to been a moment. It was probably a moment in time, you know, to make the
Mhm.
thing, you know, come to fruition, you know.
Yeah. What
Um,
about you?
a film that I wish I could have been on the set for. That's a good one.
It's
Probably.
a good question. You came up with it.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Probably the the Evil Dead. You know, you know, I love the original Evil Dead. You know, near and dear to me. But I heard like it was so damn chaotic on set, and you know, so crazy, and just the stress and all the shit that they put them through on the set and everything. And I'm like, you know what? The 2013 Fede Alvarez's Evil Dead. I feel like I would have loved to been on the set because you know they used the prosthetics. I love what they did, and I would have been interested to ask like what was going on in their head, because they knew that they had to pay homage to the original, but they had to also, you know, do something for themselves and, you know, cement themselves in that universe. And I think they did a damn good job with that film. So I would have loved to
Yeah.
have been on the set with that. I thought the cabin looked cool, and the fact that, you know, again, strong, you know, female lead, you know, Mia,
That
you
was a
know,
cool movie.
her doing her thing, you know. So I feel like I would have The Evil Dead. It would have definitely been a movie that I wish I would have been on the set for.
Nice. That's a
Yes.
great answer.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Listen. I'm loving this. I'm loving this interview. Like shout out to Sheree for putting me on to you and your shit, because
Yeah.
you're
Thanks, Ray. This is super fun.
yes, love the energy, love the answers. You know, everything going on. Now if you had a horror film that you wish you could have seen again for the first time, you know, because sometimes there's nothing like that first watch and that first, you know, just us taking in, you know, that storyline and just that surprise of what we're seeing on the screen. Like, is there one thing that you wish you could have seen again for the first time?
The thing that's coming back to me is Insidious. I that movie really like li- listen. That movie when it comes to jump scares really got me. Really, really, really got me on some fucking jump scares. And also, I just remember like the sound design and the theatricality of like the makeup and like the very like hard lighting that almost feels like a play at different times was such a I just remember being really like blown away by so many aspects of it. And it was such a good first watch and such a good first watch, like in a dark theater on a big screen with like great sound is like that's why that type of movie is the reason that I like want to show up at a movie theater and like why I want a great system at home because you know you want to see that shit on the big screen. And I'm like that was a really good feeling and great performances.
Yes. I agree. Like the sound, you know, also brings you into it. I remember like I feel like even seeing a film, like, and even if it's not the best film, like the sound can, you know, sell it for you and just make you fully engrossed. So when you are watching something like Insidious, which I did, my first viewing of Insidious, I caught at a matinee, and I was the only one in the theater, you know, but it freaked me out so much that I thought that there was someone behind me. Like I literally
Yes.
thought someone was behind me the whole time eating popcorn. And I'm like, oh wow, this person, it's just me and this other person. And then the movie ends and I find out that I'm the only one in there. And I'm like, oh wow, this
Trippy.
movie was very effective, very effective. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So yes, great answer. Insidious, great answer. Now, does I always like to ask this question to folks, you know, just to pick their brain a little bit. but does horror do anything for you specifically for your mental health, or do you think that horror does anything for folks' mental health in general?
Wow. So I'm going to answer this, and then I really, really want you to tell me about the answers that you get.
Okay.
Because I'm okay. So I just did this production of Richard III at Chicago Shakespeare Theater, and it was a very Ed Hall directed it, and he has done so much Shakespeare. It was a wonderful production, and he really leaned into a lot of grotesque horror elements. And so, like, you know, there's like proper Shakespeare, but this production had, it was like body bags and people like biting fingers off and like heads in jars, and it was just like very like violent, like visceral, while also feeling like comedic and almost like a satire, right? But I remember uh my character comes out and execute someone with a fucking chainsaw. Like, and so I had like an actual chainsaw, no chain, but like the sound, the gas smell, like the audience is in front of me. There's a cocktail at intermission called the chainsaw, right? So the chainsaw was a big deal before intermission. And I was like, I never thought I'd have a chainsaw on stage. I was like, I was like, we're touching Shakespeare, we're touching horror. I was like, this is a fucking dream for me. And I remember there were some audiences, older audiences would be like, oh, there violence, but younger audiences like would hoot and holler at the chainsaw and be like, ah! Like the really rowdy audiences felt like we were in a production of like Rocky Horror Picture Show or something, because they're like screaming along, right? And I remember going back at intermission, one of my castmates was like, they're really laughing at the chainsaw death, and like somebody brings out like a body bag with like mush afterwards, and she was like, why are they laughing? Because like there was something about it where you're like, is it a comedy? Is it a horror or a drama? And like, I like living in that place. And I remember telling her that I was like, I feel like there's a few things going on. One is horror feels like a roller coaster. So you scream, but you know that you're strapped in and you're safe. And on the other side of the ride, you're safe to have experienced all the tension creating and then the tension breaking. So I was like, they're laughing at the chainsaw because before they laugh, they're like, there's a lot of tension and it's building. And then when I finally fucking, kill him, they're like, ah, and they like will laugh. I think the other thing too is like, I think there's something absolutely cathartic about being able to laugh at death. Like so it's a physical roller coaster where you get scared but you know you're safe, but it's also like the existential dread. We all know we're going to die. It makes a mockery of every trivial thing in our life that we get upset about. Yes. That you're just like, but I'm gonna fucking die. And instead of being depressed about it and feeling like I can't get out of bed because what's the point? I feel like horror makes me feel like, yeah, it's almost like I'm in a play. I live in a drama where you're like, isn't it kind of fun to see the ride beforehand, even though you know every character's going to die? You kind of want to see how they get there. Or there's a comfort in experiencing someone else's pain, but not having to put your body through it completely. Like I really view actors as when they're good, artists who are willing to touch things that it's too hard for most people to touch on a daily basis, like grief, like death, and they touch it for you to, as Patsy Rodenberg says, to like teach you about your own humanity. And that feels really true to me. And I think horror just touches, I mean, that's acting in general, but I think horror just touches on that, where you're like, hey man, let me teach you a bit about your humanity. Let me teach you to laugh at death. Or if it's very scary, like, let me teach you to like live in your fear and then realize you're okay anyway and that you're safe. So I think it's fucking great for your mental health. I think it's super cathartic. I think especially people who have experienced trauma, I feel like are really drawn to it. And it's that thing of like, I think it was like a journalist that said, art's meant to, what is it? It's like comfort the, I'm going to get this quote wrong, but basically like comfort people who are already experiencing pain, and then to shake the people who are experiencing comfort into seeing other people's pain. The quote is better than that. The fucking quote is even better than that, but that's the idea. So those are all my thoughts, and a long story to just let everyone know I got to hold a chainsaw for some reason on horror. And now I would love your response. And I want to know what people say, and because I'm so interested in this subject.
Yeah, it's like I feel like it a lot of people they when they do talk to me about this, they do say like it's very cathartic, especially people who have been through like traumatic and experiences and like super like real shit in their real lives or whatever. And I feel like sometimes it's a release, like I remember I had a nightmare once where I was running from Michael Myers through this huge mansion. It's like all white mansion. It looked like it at the time, I know there's controversy right now, but it looked like Puppy's mansion at the time or whatever. And I was just running through it. And, Mike was chasing me, and he catches up to me and he starts stabbing me. And I start laughing, I'm like, I don't know what that says about me or whatever. Like I even talked to my therapist about it. I'm like, I don't know what that says. She's like, oh, it says something about you and your fears and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe it it taught me, horror teaches folks a little bit about their fear, because sometimes when I interview folks, they're like, oh, it's a release. I get to see someone go through something, and I get to think about the shit that I'm going through, and it's like, okay, well, it's not that bad. This woman had to escape, this shark on this and she's standing on nothing but this island, on this little island with this little rock and a bag of bread, and she's got to escape this shark, and it's like, okay, if she can do that, then I can climb out of whatever I'm climbing out of, and some I feel like there's a comfort, because I also like to talk to people about like what spaces do they soak up horror in, and what comfort does it bring, like, because a lot of people, like for us, they feel comfortable watching something horrific on the screen and going to bed. Like some people can turn on Hellraiser and go to bed,
You
and
just described my brother's nightly routine. He's like, it's like he turns on a horror movie and will like fall asleep on the couch.
Yeah, it's like it's just it's wild to some people. Like sometimes I'll listen to, like, there's this podcast, the No Sleep podcast, where it's very high production, like quality horror narratives, and very like voice actors, and all these amazing scores, and people are getting chased through the woods with chainsaws and all this stuff, and I'm sitting there, I'm falling asleep to it, just like it's ASMR, and my fiance, she's like, it's funny because I'll be asleep, and then she'll be the one awake hearing the screams through my headphones, because it just provides that level of comfort, so some people say it's a comfort thing, some people say it's a cathartic thing, some people say it's a way that they can get to express themselves in the safety of their own home, like they can put on if they have like a shitty day or whatever, they can put on something to where somebody is just completely just laying waste to whatever, similar to playing a video game and letting off some steam. Like some people, they'll do that, or having something on in the background. Like I know I can just throw something like The Thing on in the background, and it'll instantly make whatever I'm doing better. Like it'll instantly make my day better. So I feel like it does definitely, everyone who I've talked to about it, they said it definitely does help with their mental health, and just makes them, I guess it gives them a a way to deal with life a little bit more. Like for me, I know it helps with my anxiety, because I didn't always know I had anxiety, but I've always had anxiety, especially as a kid, and watching horror, being able to see something, especially in the dark, and being able to cut it off and control that, and just be
That's
like,
a
oh,
big
that was
part
a
of it, is
wild
like
ride.
I think it's like this thing where you're like, look, life is scary. It is. And there's a
Mhm.
lot of discomfort. And I think in some ways, suffering is of our own choosing, but pain is most certainly not. That's a reality.
Yes.
So, so this is like a controllable dose of it almost. It's like exposure therapy. It makes you a little braver and makes you a little, and makes you know that you can turn it off and you're like, okay. And like, how brave am I? You know? And it and also it I also think I've been listening a lot to the Huberman Lab podcast, and he has a one thing about like dopamine and how like doing hard things can release good chemicals that actually like make you more happy than comfort would make you. And I think horror
Okay.
lives in that too, where you're like, the discomfort makes me happier on the other end of it. Like I put my body through something and it releases a bunch of fucking happy chemicals that afterwards I'm like, that was so fun, that was so cool, you know. And so it's a little bit like working out. It's a little bit like taking an ice bath or going on a long walk or a hike where you put your body through something and then afterwards you feel fucking amazing.
Oh yeah, it totally is, and I feel like it's even more so when you're jumping on like a game. Like I was playing a
Mm-hmm.
game that has always defeated me even as a kid, Resident Evil 2. I've never beat that fucking game, but I
Oh,
played
listen, yeah, Leon, Claire, Ada. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. It's so good. It's so hard.
Mr. X, Mr. in the remake of the, like it's just it like I literally was playing the game and I'm sweating. I cut the game off and I'm like, why am I sweating? But like you said, you feel that release and you feel good and you're like, I'm sitting up there talking shit. I'm like, oh, this fucking game, like, it's just they do it too much. They do it too much, but I feel great. I feel like I just got off, the treadmill and, stuff like that. The endorphins are being released and, it's a high. It's a high that you get, like there's different highs that you get, just living, like even with me having conversations, like after I have, great conversations with folks, like I get that high. Like after I step away from the computer, I'm like, damn, that was a really awesome conversation. I'm in the bed smiling and shit. I'm like, this was an awesome fucking, breakdown about whatever the hell we're talking about. And, and I think it says something about the human experience,
Yeah. That's
so
why people get addicted to improv too. You get shoved out in most people's worst fear, which is like being in front of a bunch of people and being like, what
yes.
the fuck am I doing? And then afterwards you feel absolutely amazing. It's such a high to get out there, especially when it goes well. You're like, damn man, I just did something that most people are really, really scared of. It feels good. Feels so good.
Listen. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. My next question for you would be: do you have any favorite horror television shows? Does anything stick out to you? Past or present?
You know, this is the very first thing that pops out that I don't know if it's the correct answer and I don't know if it counts is I've always loved every Halloween episode of The Simpsons. Treehouse Horror is like one of my favorite traditions, and I love it. I love that it touches horror and comedy, and I love how irreverent it is, and I love how violent it is. I remember when I
Yes.
was a kid being like, their skin's inside out. Like I was like, what am I looking at? Does that count as an answer?
Listen, it definitely counts as an answer because as a kid, when I would go into, the market or whatever, I would buy the blank VHS tapes and I would go record all the Halloween episodes of The Simpsons. And,
Mhm.
I would just play them throughout the year. I'd be like, all right, we had a VCR, TV/VCR combo in the kitchen. And I would just watch that shit, while we're eating dinner, or, while I'm eating breakfast before school. And it's just something about Halloween episodes in general, animated, because they get to have fun with it and but also pay homage and you're like, oh, I get that. And some things you don't get until you're an adult. You're like, oh shit, that's where they got that from,
Oh, you know what? I have two other answers. One of them I know counts. One of them I don't know if it counts. One that I know counts is I actually was like I found very enjoyable the Scream television series.
Yes.
You know, it wasn't perfect. And the last season, I almost felt like I was like, it feels like a separate show. But I, and again, I don't know how I'd feel about it on a rewatch, but on a first watch, I was like, just found it very enjoyable. I found the cast likable, and I was like engaged in it, and I was like, this was cool, and I was like really glad that I watched it. So I know that counts. The one that I don't know if it counts, but that I was really into was I loved I loved all the gore and elements in Dexter. I thought that the horror elements of like how violent and grotesque that show could be um really tickled me. And this is where I'm like, does it even count as horror because it lives in the drama world that I love? So like, I mean, it kind of makes sense
Listen,
that I would love that show because I'm like, it's nasty and is like super high drama and like super relationship driven. Like the first 4 seasons of that show. I actually had a dream that John Lithgow cut off my arm after watching like the 4th season of that show, and have never been. I don't want to spoil it, but the end of the 4th season of that television series, I think, wrecked me and was more affecting to me than almost any other piece of media that I can think of. I felt like legitimately depressed for like weeks afterwards.
you know what's funny? It's there was a certain character, like I don't want to spoil it for anybody who, hasn't seen it, but there was a certain character that was like you're always whining, 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 whining. And then when that happened in that moment in season 4, I could not get up from my couch. I
Yeah.
literally sat there, credits roll, could not get up from my couch. I was stuck. And I think like that's what like the
Yeah.
drama aspect of it.
Became immovable. And then all of a sudden that very striking imagery in that last scene, the blood and the bathtub, right? It's
Yes.
just this incredibly striking imagery. Is it would be it, if it was a painting, it would be it would hurt me. But the drama of knowing who that person is, their relationship, having so much intimacy, and following those characters, and then so much hopefulness in the relationship, made the images, it makes you, it paralyzes you. And that's why I'm like, I think that's why I like love shit where I fall in love with the relationships. And that's the kind of stuff that I like want to write, so that the image becomes like even scarier, more devastating, and makes you sit on your couch for, however long afterwards.
Listen. It's as long as it's effective, it's got to be effective. That's what we're here for, folks. The just having a reaction, and whether it's good or bad, having that reaction. And Dexter, it definitely did that. Especially that season. To the point where to this day, I still walk around my house sometimes, and I see my fiance and be like, "Hello, Dexter Morgan." Like when he popped up in the police station, and it was just like it's that show. I love Dexter. I love Dexter. If you guys have not checked out Dexter, definitely check it out. It's definitely a show. It's wrecked me a couple times on that show. Definitely wrecked me a
Yeah,
couple
man, that's a
times.
great, that's
You
a
know.
great show.
Now, do you have a favorite, horror villain, or final girl or final boy?
Ooh, oh my God, this is such a good question, and I'm like, oh my God, dun, 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 dun. Oh my God, this is a tough one. Uh, Villain, all I can think about is Psycho.
Yes.
You know, he's such. That's one of the best film performances. I think I find him mesmerizing. I don't want to look away from him, and also like kind of hot, which is disturbing. Um, I, as an actor, I'm like really attracted to that performance as well. So I almost want to say that that's not, not a t-shirt I would wear, but He's, like I'm like, yeah, yeah, let me think about like horror villains. There's some really like hardcore stock characters, but for some reason, all I can think about is Psycho. Favorite final girl? Damn, man. You know what? I don't know her name. Um, what's the character's name in Cabin in the Woods?
Oh shit, I don't know
Does
her
she count?
name
Does she
either.
count? Because of the way that film ends, does she count as a final girl?
She
She
counts.
she
I
counts.
mean, yeah,
I like the final girl and final boy in that, and the
iconic.
actor Fran Kranz. I like love him. I have a real crush on him. He's a fucking cutie. But I liked I liked Cabin in the Woods for the way that they played with those stereotypes, and that's probably why it's coming up in my brain. Who's your favorite final girl?
Oh, my favorite final girl would have to be Geraldine, from Demon Knight, Jada Pinkett, in Demon
Mm,
Knight. She definitely was I don't know, it was at the time Jada was the shit, and we also had you throw in the aspects of Tales from the Crypt, and just the
mhm,
designs of those demons, and then you've got just the story and just all of the things that she had to go through, that night, and just in that seedy ass hotel in the middle of nowhere. It was just
mm.
crazy, I just love that. I just love it.
Oh, the other one too. I mean, like, not to be such a scream whore, but Sydney really is. I'm like, Nev Campbell is to me like the quintessential like horror scream queen.
She's an icon.
Yeah, she's my favorite. I think she's very charming and a good actor, and Sydney's really fucking cool. Oh, some other survivors that I love. Here's the other. Did you see Vacancy?
Hell yeah. Saw
Yeah, man.
Vacancy.
That's sorry, spoilers, but I that movie is one that fuck yeah, man, fucks me up. Like there's something about it that's like really, really gritty, and but I like how it ends for that reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Some great answers. Some great answers. I love it. I love it. Now we got people wanted to know, Sheree said, what did you think of Dexter 2.0? Did you see
I
the
did see Dexter 2.0, and I think that the Dexter 2.0 ending is that they got to was more satisfying than Dexter 1.0 ending. And also shout out to Katie Sullivan, who I was talking about that Richard III that I just did. She played Richard, and she's a character in Dexter 2.0. And I actually haven't watched it since becoming her friend, but I remember we were like at rehearsal, and she was like, "Oh yeah, this is me in the police station," and I was like, what the fuck? I was like, this is the coolest fucking thing. And Katie's brilliant, so I've actually been meaning to rewatch Dexter 2.0 for that reason. I also love Jennifer Carpenter a ton, like
oh,
Exorcism of Emily Rose, and then fucking like her character Deb in Dexter is like my
oh,
personal fucking hero. And
listen,
so the fact that she was in it, the way that they utilized her instead of his dad and stuff, I was like, I was just happy that she was back. I think she's fucking awesome.
she broke me. She broke me
Sheree,
in
what did
Dexter.
you think? She broke you?
She fucking broke me in Dexter, because when they were in the like, I don't want to spoil too much, but when they were in the docks, and she had to make the decision, because like, fucking broke me. I was like, Dexter.
Dude, I've always felt that the way that I wanted Dexter to end is that I was just like, I felt very much like I wanted Deb to have a happy life.
Yeah.
Like it almost felt like, yeah, man, it's everything is tough. That show's tough, man. It's tough. It
Yeah, it
does a
was.
lot to my body.
We got Paul Draws said Mermaid Man was my favorite scene in Cabin in the Woods. Yes, Mermaid Man was definitely a highlight.
So
Sheree just watched Vacancy for the first time last week.
oh,
Yes,
that was
yes.
a good first watch. Yeah, that's a great one.
Yes, Vacancy was great. I like Dexter 2.0 and agree it's such a better ending than what we originally got.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it was very it was very like it was some great shit, but then it was just like um some very questionable things, but all
I
in
get it
all,
though. It's hard. I think it's really difficult to stick the landing with shows that go that long because, in the first couple seasons, it, I think it's easier when there's only a couple seasons because you don't
yeah.
get quite so far away from where you started. But it's like you want to feel like it bookends and the way that you start is the way that you end. But when it's so expansive, you're like, how do I
Yes.
cover all this ground and wrap it up? So it's a job as a television writer and showrunner that I'm like, I don't envy trying to stick the landing on a long running TV show. That's really, really tough. I think a show like The Good Place, where you're like, hey man, what is it, like 4 seasons? We kind of probably know how it's going to end when we start it. They fucking stuck the landing, but it's contained and it almost felt like every episode was leading towards that. But like when there's no end in sight and then suddenly you have to stick the landing, I'm like, that sounds like the hardest fucking thing in the world. I don't even know how to begin to think about that.
Shout out to the fucking Good Place. That was an amazing show from start to finish. Start to
Damn,
finish.
yeah, I think it might be, for my money, like the best written sitcom of all time because there it doesn't feel like there's filler. It feels really purposeful and it's so meaningful and it's kind of like all the things that we were talking about, like
Yes.
existentialism and stuff. I'm like, I really love it.
Yes, yes. Now thank you for rocking with me so far through the interview. I've got two more questions for you, before we wrap it up.
Hell yeah.
I like to pick folks' brains with these questions. Now we are in a era of, VR and virtual reality and, so many different things that they can do with that. So, and there's a space for horror in there as well, so if I were to put on the Oculus goggles, the VR goggles, and I'm stepping into Anatasha's world, describe the scene, like describe the world that I'm looking at, describe the sky, describe the environment.
Is this something of my own creation or
Yes.
this is something of my own creation of a
Yes.
VR creation?
Yes.
You know, this is going to be such a lame answer. And but I just want to sit under a tree. So I'm like, you're sitting under a tree. When you're like looking up and you see the blue sky, and then maybe you're sitting under some trees, and so it's just like all those like images of the branches and
Yeah.
stuff. Because I'm like, that's the place to be, man. There's not there. I don't think there's a better thing in this world than just like sitting under a fucking tree. So,
Okay.
but then I'd like take your headset off and just like go sit under one. I, I think I don't remember where we got like Darkling was like somewhat related to our last name Blakely, which is like there was like a meaning of like a dark forest. And I was like, that's something in there. And I was like, that's all very fitting for me because I'm like, yeah, I just want to be in a dark forest. So I don't know, not that
Okay.
creative, but
Well, listen, I love it. Sometimes you just gotta sit down somewhere and touch some grass, get some fresh air and
let's sit in that grass and get a little itchy.
yes, just a little bit, just a little bit. That's where the best ideas come from, because sometimes there's so much noise in our reality that we just need to have a sit,
How do
and
you
be able to
answer this
focus.
VR question? Like,
You know
yeah,
what? Yeah, no one's ever flipped that question around on me. I feel like if you were to put on the VR goggles for me, um, it would be very it would be very valley, like because I grew up in Sacramento, California, so it would look like the valley, and you'd just be walking down, some nice trees and things like that, but your imagination is reality, basically. So sometimes I've had like an overreactive imagination. So sometimes like I'll be walking down the street and if it's too fucking windy, I'll just imagine like this huge tornado in the distance, you know, and because I had a nightmare once where I'm walking down this dirt road and I turn around in the back of me, there's this tornado with shades on, and it's singing something like a phenomenon, you know, like a LL Cool J, something like a phenomenon, you know, and it's just dancing, and I'm just like, and it sounds like some Courage the Cowardly Dog type shit, but you know, maybe that's what I was watching at the time, but you know, it was very surreal, and I also remember an incident where I was over my grandmother's house and we're just playing in the backyard and she's like, "Oh, turn the sprinklers off." And I accidentally turned instead of turning them off, I turned them up. So it just shoots like for me it shot up like a mountain, you know, into the air and I just see this face, you know, in the sprinkler and it's just smiling at me and you know, it scared the shit out of me as a kid, you know. Like some people tell me it was like it could have been like a spirit, you know, somebody, you know, winking at me or whatever, or just my imagination at the time, you
Mhm.
know. And then
Do you feel like you either have like a feet like you're like the wind or an image, and then you suddenly get an image that like almost transposes something else on top of it, or like it becomes like you're seeing images within images, or like your imagination goes like
yes, it goes crazy. Even like if I see like big trees, like I'm like, okay, what if I think my mind thinks like, okay, what if this tree like was to want to have a conversation with me just to be like, oh hey, and it's got a deep voice, you know, or if I'm walking down the street and it's a cloudy day and all of a sudden like a hand from the clouds just decides to, you know, reach down and, you know, grab me and pull me up and, you know, just lift me up to the clouds or whatever. So I feel like my VR experience would be you couldn't really trust anything at this point.
I like that. That's kind of cool. I like it reminds me of like animation where there's like it's like surreal, almost Alice in Wonderland, and things kind of become other things. Like
Yeah.
did you watch the Midnight Gospel?
Oh, several times. That shit was
That's
trippy as hell.
fuck, that show is trippy as hell. And also the last is talk about sticking the ending. The last episode
Yes.
is the most is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. It's something I like think about it. I feel like I think about it once a day. I really feel like I think about that episode like once a day. Yeah. The idea that you're like, hey, that kind of love's not going anywhere is so beautiful. But the animation of like something kind of transforming when you were talking about some of those images of like the tornado and stuff, I was kind of seeing Midnight Gospel a little bit.
Listen, the mid I feel that. I feel that, especially I think at the time, like I was smoking watching the Midnight Gospel, so I think it enhanced it a little bit for me, you know. So it's just mind expansion, you know, mind expansion. So if you put on the VR goggles and you're looking at shit through my peripheral, you know, just 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 know that anything can you know anything's fair game, pretty much anything's fair game, you
Cool.
know.
I love that. I love that.
Yes, and thank you for turning that on. You know, you turn these questions on me tonight, you know. I'm
I
like,
like to
okay, I've
feel like,
never.
I mean, I know that it's an interview, but I like to feel like we could just be having a cup of coffee, you know?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
That's more fun for me. So I got to know you a little bit.
Oh yeah, listen, and I'm loving this vibe. I'm loving this vibe. You know, it's definitely like I would love to have you back on the show, you know, and to chop it up, you know, about
Okay.
some other things, you know, as well. You know, this is
Anytime.
definitely one of my favorites, you know, definitely one of my favorites. Now the last question of the night, you know, which I ask everybody, which everybody gives me different answers for different reasons, but if you could be a horror villain, you know, it could be a person, creature, thing, entity, whomever. Who or what would it be for 24 hours? You know, who would you be and why?
Whew. Oh my God. If I could be a horror villain for any reason, and I'm only the horror villain for 24 hours and then we're done here.
Yeah, 24 hours, we're done here, you know.
That's fucking crazy, man. This is a fucking wild ass question. That can't be my answer. No, that can't be my answer. I'm gonna say Pennywise.
Oh shit.
I feel like there's something really powerful and naughty about an entity. I can't believe that I didn't mention it before this because it's
Oh,
it's one of my favorite books. I think I love the TV series. I think that the fucking like the part 1 and 2, Jessica Chastain, I can't, it's so good. Anyway, but I think there's something really fun and naughty about an entity that can become people's worst fears, like a what do they call it, a Bogart in a Harry Potter. I can't remember if I'm saying that right.
yeah, Bogart.
But
Yeah.
that feels like a little. I'm kind of like a little naughty, and I'm very mischievous. And so, like the idea of being able to become the things that people are afraid of and causing a bit of mischief sounds kind of fun to me. So that's what I would do.
Yes, yes. I love that answer. Now, which Pennywise? Sheree says, which version of Pennywise? Would it be
You know,
Skarsgård?
well, Tim Curry was like one of my true nightmares as a child. But
Yes.
I do think that Skarsgård brings like a I don't know, like not a gravitas, but like something modern to it. So I'm gonna say Skarsgård. I think he feels a little bit more naughty to me.
We're on the same page because
Yeah.
he makes me a little bit more uncomfortable,
Uh-huh.
especially when he was talking to Georgie, and I'm just like, holy fuck, like these are kids. Like there were times in the film where I was like, these are kids. Like, why are you putting them through this shit? And I feel like Skarsgård brought that to it. Like, I love Tim Curry and his what he was able to bring to the character, but Skarsgård for me, all the
Yeah.
way, all the
Yeah.
way.
He's so good. Those were fucking great films.
Oh,
Yeah, and also I consider myself a clown in the very theatrical sense. You know, my husband and I teach clown and do a lot, and it's so tied to improv that I don't know, and combining it with horror, like I like something that touches both worlds, and like there's a lot of stuff in it that I find very funny even though it's disconcerting. So
yes,
I think
yes.
that's my final answer.
Listen, I love it. I love it. It's a great answer. It's definitely a
Okay, is
great
this
answer.
one that you have an answer to? Have
Oh
you thought about
yeah.
it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've thought about like who I would be for 24 hours. I mean, it's there's so many different characters, that you could choose from or whatever, but I think that I would be the Wishmaster, for 24 hours,
Mhm.
just to have people come to me and be like, you know what, grant my wish. And just to, because I feel like sometimes people do come to me for advice, and then I'm like, they call me like, all right, don't give me a lecture. Don't give me a lecture, especially my younger siblings. They're like, don't give me a lecture. And I feel like I would be that, but in Wishmaster form, So it would be
Yeah,
like
I love
like
something that
demonic genie.
expands. Yeah, expands on your base set of skills. It's a little bit like you're a Twilight vampire, where like
Yes.
they've got powers as a human that like become bigger when they become a vampire. So if you became a vampire, you would just be the Wishmaster.
Yes, yes. Just because I feel like it would just be fun, being like, all right, I'll grant that wish, but I know your true intentions. So this is how I'm gonna flip it on you. And then when you say,
You're
hey,
gonna
I
learn a
didn't,
fucking lesson.
yeah, you're gonna learn a fucking lesson, especially because I fucking love Twilight Zone, so I've learned a lot of life lessons from the original Twilight Zone episodes, and just seeing how they correlate with uh, how things are in life right now, throughout the decades. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna learn you. I'm gonna learn you, So
That's
yeah.
cool. I like that answer. That's cool.
Yes, yes, yes. But thank you for joining me tonight, Anatasha. This has been an awesome interview. Definitely one of my favorites. Like I've had so much fun, just chopping it up with you tonight. I
Yeah.
hope you had fun.
Yeah, this was a fucking blast and such a good community that I'm like really happy to be connecting in this way. And hey, everybody, and thanks for your excellent suggestions and shit. And yeah, if you haven't watched my movie, please watch my movie. I just love it. I'm proud of it. I want people to watch it, but specifically the horror community, like what we're talking about, where I'm like, that's really like the audience that I want to be in service to. And I just love it. So yeah, fucking thanks for having me. This is fucking great.
Listen, it's amazing. It's amazing time. Thank y'all for kicking it with us tonight. Kara and Mika, double feature podcast. Thank you for stopping by. Sheree, Michael, Germs, everybody for stopping by. Paul Draws, scrolling. If I miss you, I apologize. A lot of love in the comments tonight. Scott, it's that Scottish geek guy. Thank you for stopping by. Everybody looking on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you're viewing, thank you for showing love and love with horror podcast. Thank you for stopping by. Wilkie, Corey, thank you for showing love. And definitely make sure that you are checking out darklingfilms, .com, where you can catch the film that we were chopping it up about. I highly recommend it. It's a little, like I said, it's a little bit under 18 minutes, and I definitely think it's worth your time. If not tonight, definitely this weekend, check it out. And let the creator, let the filmmaker, let her know how you felt, because I definitely let her know how I felt. And Sheree let me know how she felt. And it's just it's one of them ones. You got one. So I'm happy and proud, as it's just someone in the horror community and who loves film, and as a writer myself, someone putting out some cool shit. So I'm glad that I got to chop it up with you and just be in community with you tonight. So
Yeah.
thank you again. Thank you
Thank
again.
you.
Yes, but yes, links in the bio, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, peace, love, and horror. And we're out of this thing.